Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad, this is my channel Adam and Orange, and welcome to another review video. Today we are going to talk about the Harry Potter Burrows model, which the Burrows is the Weasley home in the book series. They put out a silver model of this version some time back, and shortly thereafter, or if not at the same time, I'm not quite sure, there was a in-color version available exclusively through Books A Million, and I picked one of those up. Now, everything that I can tell from the instructions and everything that I've heard from other people, they build exactly the same. It's just that the BAM exclusive has color. A bit tougher to get. I think Books A Million is also part of a couple of other companies like Second and Charles, so it's out there. You can't find it online as far as I know, except for possibly eBay. Fortunately, I do have a Books A Million store near me, so I was able to get this one and could possibly get more in the future if and when the mall ever reopens. Not that I'm rushing that, because we need to deal with the pandemic first. But I have the in-color version. That's the one I've decided to build. And I will say, to start off, as you can see, it's a pretty wonky looking model. It is not straight. I'm pretty sure that's the intention. Now, if you watch the movie, you look at the house in the movie, it's a little bit wonky, though I don't think it's quite as wonky as this. I think this exaggerates it a little, but I could be wrong. But it is pretty sure it's intended to be this off and crooked and tilted. And even when assembly, which I kind of expected. I mean, I saw the pictures of it, I kind of expected that to be. I know the original is a bit kind of wonky looking. This is more so than I expected. Even putting some of the walls together of the top floor, they're not square to each other. It's kind of odd shaped, but whatever. So yeah, wonky looking, a bit crooked. That's the intention. Reminds me of the Disney exclusive Haunted Mansion, which is also a bit wonky, which I thought was a bad design at the time, but I think it's also supposed to be a little bit off. Not as much as this though. Now, I do like to take a moment to talk about some of the things I ran into during this build and possible difficulties and whatnot. But honestly, and I will talk about them, but honestly, this build was pretty straightforward and easy to do. It took me about 1 hour and 40 some minutes to put this model together, so not even 2 hours. Again, pretty simple and straightforward and easy to do. There is a complete void of rounding parts and cone-shaped parts, so the tool set was pretty simple, mostly just pliers and tweezers to put this thing together. Pretty simple and straightforward. I will say that one of the things that confused me in the instructions when you first start off building the walls of the bottom floor, there's a bit in the instructions about a piece that folds over and swings out and folds down or something like that, or swings out and folds down, and I was confused as to how that worked. And it's these little support arms in the corners of certain areas. And once I started building it, it made a lot more sense. This house is just so kind of bloated and built upon that it's got weird little support structures to hold it up. And speaking of the side pieces, it was a bit fiddly trying to get the side walls of the bottom floor together. It was a bit fiddly and difficult to get. I think I was trying to fold the tabs over because the instructions said so. I want to say that folded or twisted either way would work. But, you know, once it started coming together, it started becoming more secure. That was possibly one of the more difficult parts of this model, so that's really not saying much. There were a number of tabs that need to be folded out, tabs that were close together, so I used an old trick where I take the pointy tweezers and kind of wedge them between the tabs, spread them open, and then fold them over. Pretty simple trick. And then when you go to put the roof pieces of the bottom floor together, it has you put two together here, put two together over there, and then bring the two halves together as one. So it doesn't like add all the way around it. Build one half, build the other half, then add the two halves together. And I'm not saying that's a bad method, but it was an interesting choice. I couldn't help but to wonder if it was a bit difficult getting the two halves together. And I can't help but to wonder if it would have been easier to just do one piece at a time, adding all the way around, or if it would have been a similar difficulty. It's really hard to say. One of the things I ran into was forgetting to fold up this little top chimney part at an angle. You have to fold it up. Again, not a big deal. I'm kind of nitpicking here a little bit because there really wasn't that much challenging about this model. There was a couple of areas where I had to be careful to hold the main part while folding tabs over so as not to bend them. When you get up into this upper section, doing this little chimney bit was a bit delicate and wobbly when I finished it, but I dropped some glue in there to keep those little chimney bits from wobbling around. It seems to be holding. I mean, it really doesn't take much. It's not supporting any other structures. I just didn't want it wobbling around on the model if the floor shakes or if I go to move the model. But one of the things that kind of stands out in this little weird little outside structure here, there's a set of steps in there. In the way the instructions, that's shaving part 19. You put in part 19 and add it to part 20, which I think this whole section is 20 and 19 is the steps. And the way they show it, there's a flap that has to be folded up that the steps are on. And forgive my awkward movements, my arms are still quite sore. But you add the steps on, and then the instructions show add the steps on, and then folding the flap up, which puts the steps where they belong. But if you do it that way, the steps potentially run into this little leg right here. So rather than doing it that way, which maybe it's possible to do it that way and get by with it, I'm not confident in that. I went ahead and folded the flap up and stuck the stairs in there, and I had to kind of reach in with the tweezers and manipulate the tabs, which was difficult, a little challenging, but not impossible. And for me, that was definitely the way to go. You might be able to fold it up, put it on, and then fold that flap up, but I'm not sure it would clear that little piece and end up bending it. And little pieces like that, once they're bent, are difficult to get back into shape. There were some issues with like this little piece over the window here, trying to fold the top parts without completely warping it, and I only did so well with that. But all in all, it was just folding a bunch of parts and putting things together. It was a pretty simple model, and very happy that I got the in-color version. I know a lot of people are not as happy about the colored versions of these models, but for the most part I'm loving it. And this little bit of color on this really adds to the look of this model. Silver is fine, but I'm really happy with the colored version. So in the end, there's really not a whole lot to talk about with this model. Just be aware that it's going to be kind of wonky coming together. Not everything is going to be straight, so don't beat yourself up if it's not coming together straight. It's not supposed to. These support pieces are like the last thing you do. Just kind of fold them into shape as best you can. Mine are not perfect, but upon a quick glance, they look just fine. Everything is just folding and bending and twisting tabs. There's no curves. There's no particularly delicate parts. A few tedious parts here and there, but overall simple, straightforward, and a fun little build. This was a nice break from so many of the very complicated and difficult models I've been doing lately. This was a nice kind of step back into something easier, and if you're a Harry Potter fan, if you're familiar with the Weasleys and the Burrow, fantastic model to have in your collection. I try to remember at the end of my videos to go, if I had this model to do differently, what would I change? With this one, I can't think of a thing. Again, comes together simple, straightforward, and easy. There's nothing about this model that I would say I wished I had done this differently if I were to do it again. No, pretty straightforward and simple. Love it. I'm going to leave it at that. Short review, because there's not a whole lot to talk about. If you want this model, it's fantastic. If you're having a lot of difficulty finding this model, reach out to people on the Metal Earth community. Some people are able to get one locally through their Second and Charles or Books A Million if they're open, and maybe someone can help you. I could possibly help you. I can't guarantee. Honestly, me right now, I can't, because that store's not even open, and the county that I'm in is too busy griping about the governor being a tyrant and keeping us closed while our numbers are increasing more rapidly than they should be this late in the game, when we had done so well keeping our numbers fairly low. They've increased like 200 or 300 in the past week or two when we're a small town. So yeah, there's a lot of people griping about opening things back up when we're obviously not ready, and they're not blaming the right ones. I don't want to get into it. It's just positively ridiculous how selfish people are being, and how they would rather blame politicians than recognize that we're trying to do the safe thing. They'd rather play conspiracy theorist and call doctors liars and scientists liars than to just do the right damn thing and protect each other and get past this. Anyway, it's mind-boggling. I'm going to leave it at that. It was more than I intended. I'm rather frustrated about the situation. But if you're looking to get one of these models, check out the Metal Earth subreddit, Metal Earth, or excuse me, reddit.com/r/Metal Earth, and you might be able to find somebody that can help you get one if you want the color version, or you can check eBay. I'm not sure what the prices are on that. Fantastic little model. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for continuing to support this channel. As always, keep on keeping on.